5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello again, everyone, and if it looks a little dark behind us, it is. It's because we're outdoors tonight and we're enjoying some of the beautiful post-sunshine, I guess you would say, after sunset, and I hope all of you are having a great time wherever you are, and I'm glad to have you back with us tonight on our PBS edition of Steve Beverly's TV Classics. Now, when you think back to some of the great stars in the history of entertainment, certainly Paul Newman is right there at the top, because he was absolutely one of the biggest box office stars throughout the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. But he cut his teeth on the Broadway stage and in the era of live drama in television. And he was one that, it didn't matter what the role was, if it was something that had some substance to it, he was there. And it's because of his ability to act and just absolutely handle himself in a live drama situation that he was eventually tapped in the late 1950s for film roles, and he never looked back. He also did game shows from time to time. He was on I've Got a Secret and What's My Line? What's My Line as a mystery guest, and as a celebrity guest on I've Got a Secret at one point, in which his secret was, this was done during the World Series of 1958, and he had come down the aisle where Henry Morgan, one of the panelists on I've Got a Secret, was sitting in Yankee Stadium and actually served him a hot dog as a vendor. And they set that all up. Henry had no idea who it was that happened. But it was really a charming situation. But the dramatic roles that Paul Newman played were suddenly, they were the ones that just propelled him into a fantastic career. So tonight, we're going to show you in our second segment what he was all about in a show called Armstrong Circle Theater. It was sponsored by the Armstrong Cork Company, and they put their money into live television all the way up until 1963, when finally it became pretty evident that the era of live drama was over on television, at least on a weekly basis. So we're going to have a very special show in which, this was from 1955, and he played a fighter who was really struggling with the promise of another payoff in the ring and trying to take care of his family. So that's going to be something that I know you're going to look forward to. I've seen it, and I can tell you it is worth your time to watch. But tonight we're going to start with one of television's most beloved performers. You go all the way back to when he was in radio in 1945, when he created a format called Art Linkletter's House Party. And many people say that it was the very first, absolute very first magazine show, because he largely focused on topics of interest to women. And whereas he would do celebrity interviews, he would also do some things about fashion. He would do things about raising your children, people who were going through a divorce. He would bring counselors on. He also would go into his audience and play games, and he had great fun. Particularly his most noteworthy was something called What's in the House, where he would give clues, and the folks in the audience that he would select would try to guess what was inside a little replica metal house that he would bring into the audience. But tonight, we're going to show you the thing that made Art Linkletter absolutely the most beloved in daytime television for all the years, 19 years, that he was on daytime on CBS. And that was when he would visit with the kids from various and sundry elementary schools all throughout Southern California. And at one point in the late 1950s, he actually did a separate show that was syndicated called Art Linkletter and the Kids. And so tonight we're going to bring you one of those. As we say, this comes from 1959, in which it's a 15-minute show in which he just did marvelous things that could bring out the best, the worst, and the most unpredictable in kids. So here we go. Put on your seatbelt. You're going to enjoy it, because the kids are going to entertain you on Art Linkletter and the Kids. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, Art Linkletter won all kinds of awards in television for what he did in the era that finally ended in 1971. CBS canceled him in 1970 because they felt like the audience was just getting too old, and of course Linkletter said it's because CBS wouldn't give him an hour a day. It was not a very pleasant party. But in 1970 he was picked up by NBC, and he and his son Jack did a show called Life with Linkletter together. Unfortunately, it only lasted 6 months because it was going head on against Let's Make a Deal on ABC and As the World Turns on CBS. So there was just not a lot of hope for Art to be able to continue on in that tremendous challenge ratings-wise. But a number of you may remember when Bill Cosby came along in the early 00s and did a half-hour show on Friday nights called Kids Say the Darndest Things. It borrowed from the title of one of Art's best-selling books, in which he basically took the entire book and it was quotes from kids from the television show. And Art came on the show periodically to talk about, he would have a classic moment that he had done with the kids in previous years. But he also came to West Tennessee in the tail end of his life. He came to West Tennessee 3 different times to raise money for private schools, particularly Christian schools in West Tennessee. So Art was really someone who believed in Christian education. He also did it for Jewish schools as well. And he believed that it was really a significant factor because he was very concerned about the changes in the culture, and of course he lost a daughter to the drug culture back in 1971. It was one of the great tragedies, but he didn't become a victim. He became a warrior against the drug culture in America, and he was one that stood very firm in his beliefs where that was concerned. Well, now we shift gears to serious drama. Back in 1953, the Armstrong Cork Company joined with a number of other sponsors across America and decided to put their financial support into live drama on television. The Armstrong Circle Theater originally started as a half-hour show on NBC, and it was on Tuesday nights at 9:30. And it was really a show that featured many on-the-way-up actors, young performers who were trying to cut their teeth, many of them who wanted to go on and do television series, but many of them who were very intent on getting into movies. And they felt like the way they handled themselves in live television would be the catalyst to get them on film. Well, that certainly did happen for Paul Newman, who became one of the biggest box office stars in Hollywood, particularly in the era from the late 1950s until the late 1970s. Tonight, we're going to bring you one of those Armstrong Circle theaters from 1955. It is called The Contender, and it is a serious drama in which he plays a fighter who is being pushed by a trainer and a manager to go on toward a heavyweight championship. But he also saw the price that he was having to pay because of all the physical pounding that he was taking as a boxer. And he was concerned about being a father to his child and as a husband to his wife. It is compelling drama, and I hope you enjoy it here tonight as we go back in the time tunnel 69 years and Paul Newman starring in The Contender. Five, four, three, two, one. You may have noted that the female lead in that Armstrong Circle Theater was another young actress who was on the way up at that time, Inger Stevens, who eventually became the star of a television series called The Farmer's Daughter that was based on the movie of the same title. And she and William Wyndham starred in that film, in that movie that, it's not a movie, let's do that again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You may have noticed that the female lead in Armstrong Circle Theater was Inger Stevens, who was another of the young on-the-way-up actresses, just as Paul Newman was from the male side. And she eventually, in 1963, became the star of a sitcom on ABC called The Farmer's Daughter that co-starred William Wyndham, a future Emmy winner, and it was based on the movie of the same name. She did that. She did a number of made-for-TV movies, but unfortunately, she had a lot of demons inside, and that led to a suicide that just rocked everyone because she came across on film and on television as someone who could be your good friend next door. But unfortunately, it was another one of those situations involving mental health that was not a very good ending. But for Paul Newman, shows like this and other live drama, he did the United States Steel Hour. He did a number of the other live dramatic shows and film dramatic shows on television, and he had such a great portfolio that in the late 1950s, films in Hollywood began to call, and he became one of our greats. Particularly, you think of movies that gained such a huge following and again became a multiple Oscar winner, such as The Sting. And of course, he was in The Long Hot Summer. I could name just a laundry list of them. But he was one who got his start on the Broadway stage and in 1950s live television. And tonight, we've brought you an example of exactly that. Next week on TV Classics, we're going to have a very special show because I am going to have a special guest. She is a lady that many of you remember from 1966 through 71 in the series Family Affair. And I think one of the things that you're going to enjoy is that she still looks fabulous. I'm talking about Kathy Garver, who played Sissy on that CBS sitcom that certainly touched the hearts of many people. Kathy is going to be with us, and she's also going to play some Family Affair trivia. So I hope you'll all be with us for that. Well, we got to put everything back into the vault, and next week we'll be back with those shows, and I hope you're going to stay with us every week from 6 to 7 right here on West Tennessee PBS. And remember to stay tuned next for the Lawrence Welk Show. I couldn't get the pop real good. Try one more time. You got to get it the best way you can. Lawrence will be coming up in just a moment. So until we see you again next Saturday night, this is Steve Beverly saying, remember to keep watching the classics because that was when television was fun.